Rose Society a long time ago. They got shot down. The ghosts of people back to Deal. Got reduced to
How are you?
the only thing that required constitutional expansion is how things are enforced today. Bad enough.
Nope.
No, not worried about that at all.
We do have space on the right-hand side.
Come on in here, Alice.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure she's talking about.
Hot in here. Bad day.
Hey.
All right, everyone that's kind of here, we're gonna, it should be about 2 rows behind the desk. So if y'all want to slide over, the folks that are right there, just slide in front of that desk.
You need to be closer.
Yes, you will probably need to be, because he's the third excursion. Yes, sir. You want to kind of stand right there behind the president.
Okay. Well, I got to stand right there for a second. Well, I said you're running.
It's a little weird that I'm in front of the superintendent.
That's all right.
I think you deserve a little bit of honor on this.
We are good. I thank my colleagues.
We're going to have to park the waters right between you two gentlemen.
Does that count? If I thank my when I thank my colleagues?
Getting it done.
Yeah. I said
It's a long time. We're getting it done, right?
We're getting there. Inch by inch, a little train that could. So
We worked on this for 5 years.
something like that. We're doing what we got to do. Hope things are going well for you. Goodness.
Well, that's not saying a whole lot, Alan. It's a little heavily weighted towards Gwinnett County, in my opinion. That's where the people are, right out there.
What's up, Tibby? Yeah, they're gonna run this guy. They're gonna run a go back there. So you might want to take that right back behind. I'll step back.
False alarm.
You two, Governor. And after you're done speaking, I'll kind of step up.
Sounds good. Right.
And then we're not going to have any questions from the podium today, so if there are folks that you want to get afterwards for questions, just kind of meet them in that bottom back there, because we've got another meeting in here, so we have to clear folks out. Cool. Thanks, folks. I'm going to do one more check, and then we should be about ready to go. Everyone's so well behaved today.
This is education. Yeah. Now, if we were pre-K or I don't know, kindergarten, that might be a different story this time of year. Yeah.
Kindergarten's pretty behaved.
Yeah. Making sure, because I don't, unless he's. I'm saying my kindergarten teachers, they were like, and I said, I did talk to it was always because you remember the kids at the end of the year, you know, not the beginning of the year. But elementary was always, that was a fun place to be.
I agree.
That was exciting.
So this is of the people.
That's when scooters meant something different.
Yes, yes. Good.
That's not true, sir. That depends on people who know things like you.
That's what we got here.
You may have a
Elementary, they hold the dress me up.
Really?
Yes.
Your mom and dad?
No, my teachers and stuff.
Oh, really?
At the elementary.
And high?
No. When you're kind of the male,
Oh, okay.
graduation, you become like the, you know, to dress up, and somehow I always won the contest.
Oh, really? Okay.
Do something.
Good looking contest? I never won a good looking contest, that's for sure. Never once. Never once. It never happened. Never happened.
Yeah,
Scott Sweeney. Very nice. Thank you for getting us across, well, to where it is. We should probably get better recording.
That's so being in rural Georgia. Yeah, grab lunch or something with that. Okay. So I'm not sure how I won that one.
There you go. You've been American, right?
Well, I lived in Tipton, but I worked in Ocilla. So graduated fifth year.
The people who by day you won't know.
Moultrie's about 34 minutes south, yeah.
Four high school tests is eighth grade, I think. Maybe sixth.
Yeah, I think we'll read the eighth grade building business for us.
This is a big one.
I think looking at a comprehensive area.
We're not changing our institution. Rich before.
Yeah. But I tell people, we do not lack in the past. We can.
Oh, yeah.
Morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me thank everybody first for being with us today. Great group of legislators, school leaders, and superintendents, educators, Superintendent Woods, and just grateful for all of you being here as well. As I've been telling people, as I traveled the state over the last several months, we had a truly historic 2019 when it comes to education in Georgia. Fulfilling campaign promises, we increased funding for mental health in our schools through the successful APAC program. We allocated almost $70 million in locally controlled school security grants to all 2,314 schools in our state to help our students, teachers, staff, and administrators stay safe in the workplace. And together, we've been working with our partners in the General Assembly, many who are here with us today. We made a $3,000 down payment on my promise to ultimately raise teacher pay by $5,000. Since the 2019 session, I can tell you that we have been keeping our foot on the gas. We've been around the state on teacher listening tours, met with local school administrators, and engaged dedicated superintendents on how we can best serve our students. First and foremost, the team and I have made a point to make sure our educators know how much we appreciate the incredible jobs that they do every single day. But we've also made a point to listen. Too often, those in the trenches who are literally on the front lines of serving the next generation feel like they're not heard. But today, we're sending a clear message. We hear you and we've got your back. Just last month, I committed in my State of the State address to building off of the historic accomplishments of 2019. My budget includes a $2,000 pay raise for educators for a combined $5,000 increase. It shows our appreciation let me start over. It's to show our appreciation, but also to increase teacher retention in urban, suburban, and rural school districts. It's certainly well-deserved and long overdue. But as you know, there's still much work to be done. And today we're announcing another big win for education here in the Peach State. As I travel across Georgia, one of my top concerns that I regularly hear from students, parents, and educators is the amount of high-stake tests that kids take every single year. For students, these tests may not accurately reflect their personal progress. For teachers, There's substantial burdens on top of an already substantial workload. And for parents, these assessments are not only stressful, they're often repetitive, and if they're not reflecting a child's abilities, they're increasingly and incredibly frustrating. When you look at the big picture, it's clear Georgia simply tests too much. I've heard firsthand from school leaders on how these tests are affecting our Georgia students. On test days, it's making students physically sick because they're worried that they will not do well. That is simply unacceptable in our state. This legislation that we're announcing today will give more flexibility to policymakers and our local school systems. It will increase valuable instruction time for students, remove unnecessary burdens for educators, and give parents a better peace of mind about their children's education. This bill will take some big steps. First, we're eliminating 5 high-stakes tests above the federal minimum. This change alone will cut end-of-course tests by half for Georgia high school students. Second, we'll maximize instructional time by proposing a new testing window for 3rd through 8th grade tests. These tests will be conducted in the final 25 days or the last 5 weeks of a school year. Next, we'll shorten the length of the Georgia Milestones assessment for students in grades 3 through 8 by removing redundant items that give us data that's already measured elsewhere. Acting on feedback from our teacher listening tours, our bill will also remove language in the law that encourages local school systems to give multiple local assessments. We kept hearing from educators that we needed to make this change as soon as possible because it results in districts being too directed to layer on more and more local tests on top of the state and federal requirements. In addition, Superintendent Woods and his team at the Georgia Department of Education will be authorized to analyze the effectiveness of a sample of districts' locally implemented assessments. It will allow DOE and local school systems to work collaboratively on eliminating redundant testing without compromising quality. Together, I can assure you that we have worked around the clock with Superintendent Woods, the many stakeholders that are with us today, to help craft a solution for our students, teachers, parents, and administrators. Our ultimate goal is very simple: to put students first. I want to thank you for joining us today, and now it's my honor to turn the podium over to our state school superintendent, Richard Woods. Superintendent, thank you for your work.
Again, I want to thank Governor Kemp for his friendship and strong commitment to public education. This has been an amazing, basically, year and over now, so I appreciate the governor and his staff and our commitment to continue to work together for the best interests of our students. But good afternoon to everyone. I'm proud to be working hand in hand with the governor to tackle high-stakes testing in a comprehensive way. For years, I've expressed deep concerns about the number and weight of high-stakes tests in Georgia. The governor and I, as he mentioned, have heard those concerns from students, parents, teachers, as we traveled the state during the listening session over a year ago. I'm proud to partner with the governor and Senator Martin to address this critical issue head on. And again, just to reiterate what this legislation will do, it will reduce Georgia's testing requirements and put them more in line with the federal minimum, allowing us to cut the number of high-stakes tests in high school in half while also ensuring accountability. The bill limits high school end-of-course exams to 4 core courses rather than the 8 tests required in high school now, and it gives the State Board of Education flexibility to identify the 4 courses to be tested within the confines of federal law. The legislation will also maximize instruction time by moving the testing window toward the end of the school year. And I think this is important because if you look at all the material now, that many of those standards and information that has to be tested is actually better or appears on the back side of those tests. So this gives our teachers more appropriate time to cover that material and make sure that we are learning and not just simply covering information for the sake of covering information and being redundant on that end. We want to work with districts to identify and reduce redundant local tests. Again, we must test smarter and not harder as we progress in our state, and allow us to reduce the length of Georgia milestones without sacrificing high expectations or year-to-year comparability of scores. The foundation of this bill is a belief that the worth and work of our students and teachers is more than the sum of high-stakes test score. One test given on one day at the end of 1 year is not an accurate measurement of what's going on in school. And I can assure you as a teacher that I put my faith in the teachers of the state of Georgia rather than a test that is given annually. And that I can say with assurance that that is my belief. I would rather invest in our teachers than in the test, you know, what I have traditionally called the autopsy report. And so we must do things a little, you know, definitely more common sense in that area. It puts testing in the proper role and strikes the right balance, ensuring accountability, but also allowing teachers to teach. I often say our students are more than data points, percentages, and percentiles. They have names, they have passions, they have potential. This bill makes critical testing reforms to recognize that. When I came into office roughly almost 6 years ago, when I traveled the state, what I saw is that we were celebrating the test. The names and the personalities of their children basically had disappeared from the state of Georgia. This puts it back into perspective. We should be talking about our kids. As I've shared with groups time and time again, our children remember their teacher. They do not remember the test that they took. Relationships is important. It is the most important thing we do in the state when it comes to education. Again, I want to express my deep appreciation to Governor Kemp, and thank you for his support, and also Chairman P.K. Martin. And with Chairman Martin at this time, I appreciate his leadership and wish to turn the podium over to him. And we celebrate this day, and again, a great day for our students and teachers and education in Georgia. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much, Governor Kemp, Superintendent Woods. Thank you very much. I also want to thank Lieutenant Governor Duncan, who I worked with, and his staff, my colleagues for their focus on this issue this session. This legislation is a big deal. I think it's an example of government of the people, by the people, for the people. The teachers, the parents, the students, they told us this was an issue, and we're responding to them. I believe this legislation goes a long ways to lifting some of the pressure that's felt by teachers and students in Georgia. I have a group of parents, administrators, and teachers that I call my Gwinnett Education Advisory Roundtable. In responses to our first survey of important issues in education, standardized testing was mentioned in almost every single response. I was glad to hear that this issue is also a priority for Governor Kemp and Superintendent Woods this session as well. I look forward to continuing to work with the executive branch, with my colleagues in the Senate and the House, and with advocates, educators, and parents in order to continue to improve K-12 education system in Georgia. When we're all working together for students, our future is brighter. I stand here today to let you know that I intend to continue to do everything in my power as chairman of the Senate Education and Youth Committee to build bridges so that we can improve outcomes for our students. And that's what it's about in Georgia. It's about our students.